Recording going. Looks like we're recording. Okay. Hi, everybody. Yep. Joe is out sick, so he said he tried Zoom in, but he was really unsure. I think he really doesn't feel good. So we have minutes, and I know at least Greg had wanted to comment on minutes, so.
Yeah, on, I think it's item number 10, which is the Gardens Bay Country Club buffering cistern. In the existing minutes spoke to the approved version of what we were communicating out. And I thought it would be better to put, that there was that additional vote that was denied.
Although I think that was recorded in the minutes that there was a 5-1 with one abstention.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think there was.
It should be. I mean, you're absolutely right.
The last line, it says seconded and approved 5-1, one member absent. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, but Greg raised a substitute motion,
Greg did raise a substitute.
which
motion
we voted on and was voted down.
by the exact same.
Right.
So there's that point there. And the second was, we asked the town board, and I think we should probably do this and get a firm understanding.
I felt, having voted, that we also had in that meeting clarification of what they wanted.
That's
And
correct.
based on,
Not they, though, I think it was
well,
really,
the liaisons communicated with the board, what would typically be given to the board. And based on that, and Jessica's notes of what was said and what was voted on, we did submit that to the board. So if you want to see we have it on our discussion document, so Jessica could put it up on the screen. But I mean, I had no objection to what you were.
that the,
I don't know if everybody's seen.
I did. I mean, I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm just trying to clarify what your comment was.
when we, I guess that, as quickly as I can, when we get a request from the town board that says, we would like your advice on this, all right? So now we're on the book to say what we think. And there was a question about, is it, a single piece that said, here's the things that we think are, we endorse it, we think it's good, right? It's kind of like that as quickly. And my thought was as well, I have things that probably are not so good, and shouldn't they be included as well? And we had that conversation and we said, okay, they voted putting those things down. Then we asked the liaisons, we said, okay, so when you ask us, what are you expecting? And Meg said, and Gordon said that the boards, which is the planning and the zoning, they have an established document that they present, which
The
is.
other
Yeah.
committee.
And the other, the CAC and the other, they usually have like a 3-bullet, that's bullets that are, we looked at this is fine. Second bullet, we looked at this, we don't think it's fine. And then 3 is, we're not sure, but you should look into it. I think, does that cover what was discussed? I mean, does that?
In terms of how we
I put them
communicate
both
to the
sleep.
board. Yeah, in
That's
terms,
pretty close, right? I mean,
so it's on the discussion documents, you may want to look at it, or Jessica, if you want to throw up on the discussion documents what we actually did, which was basically Jessica's notes from what were the bullet points, including your comment that we accepted that the adhesive pending looking.
yes, well, that was in what was proposed and established.
Right, so this is what we said, the WAC has been tasked, as bullet paragraphs, or bullet points. The WAC has been tasked with reviewing the Gardens Bay Country Club buffering cistern as part of the site plan review. On February 24th, blah, 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 Ben Howell spoke to us to answer any questions and to make recommendation, before making a recommendation to the board. Members agreed GBCC is an important business, a resource to the island, and that the project as described is primarily a day-to-day water management tool that will not meaningfully affect annual usage. WAC endorses the cistern and pump house project because we believe that it will have a positive effect on the management of the resource by providing a storage buffer, potentially allowing GBCC to withdraw water from the aquifer more slowly. The recommendation is subject to a later determination that the adhesive that's used to put the panels together does not pose a risk of contamination to the aquifer. Member Chapman made the motion to support this recommendation, seconded and approved 5-1 with one member absent.
And that actually was me.
No, well, no, Lisa was
I
absent.
was, which is why I'm
and
wondering
you
why
were
my
the
name is
member.
up there.
You're absent.
No, my name is listed underneath, so I don't know if that's an
Well, that's
affirmative.
just who we are, I think. But
I
yes,
don't know, clarification on that, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
But it did say, 5-1.
okay, but
With one
I
member
think I
absent.
voted no, though.
so it would be,
That's 5-1.
You're the no vote.
No.
You're the one.
it would
I'm
be
the no
4
one, that's
to
what I
1
thought.
and one member absent.
No, it was,
4
there are
to
7
1.
of us, so it was 5-1 and one member absent, including Joe, that were 1, 2,
Joe
3,
didn't
4,
vote.
5, 6, 7. Joe did vote.
I,
Because he has his own section of site plan review that he's doing for the engineering portion.
So he recused himself on that vote. So this should be amended to 4-1.
4 to 1,
Yes,
one
absolutely.
absent. However, can we just go back to the original conversation I was trying to have with you? My question was only, it's just in the language here, Greg, I didn't quite get that. Because you said member Toner moved to add additional commentary to member Chapman's motion, specifically that the open request from GBC to the DEC for an additional 6 million gallons of water drawn from the aquifer. It's just that, though, there's no action, that the, what? That the, that's what I didn't understand. That the open request,
Yeah, I'm not sure that we should be
Do-
referencing the 6 million gallons, because that was not
well, I'm
part
just
of it.
looking for the language here. Okay, is anybody, okay,
I understand what you're saying, Lisa. It's
like it's-
we didn't,
it's an open-ended
well,
statement.
Greg was
though.
saying he wanted to append something to the motion that we are concerned or
46
against.
million gallons, right?
And we decided that
Okay.
wasn't what we were discussing, and it didn't need to be in this motion.
That's correct. So, yeah, I mean, I would.
Well, I think that maybe that I would change that sentence to actually, instead of being a fragment, be a sentence with an action to it. So specifically that the open request from GBC, be,
It is not
Something.
related to this map.
something.
Well,
I'm just, for the
Greg
record.
wants to be on record
if-
saying that he asked us to object to the 6 million gallons.
well, and I think, to say that it doesn't, it may well relate very much to the cistern and the number of gallons that may be in the future asked for. There could be a significance there, I think.
You made that comment.
Sure.
And you would like that comment that you made
Yeah, that's-
reflected in the minutes.
There's no, it's the minutes, this is what happened,
So-
it was spoken to and rejected, and
Could you just
that's.
rewrite that sentence, maybe?
Or you don't even have to. Jessica, you're picking up what it is that Greg is asking for, right? So would you trust Jessica to represent that?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to make it a big deal,
Yeah,
but
no,
I
no,
just
no,
didn't.
let's
it made
not,
no
let's
sense.
not be contentious where we don't have to be
No,
contentious.
no, I think for clarification,
Right,
if it's
fine.
part of the record, it really needs to.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, but Jessica seems to be doing a great job with our minutes.
I absolutely
I
agree.
So let's let her, she hears us and she hears you. And does anybody else have any, comments on the minutes before we approve them, pending a small change for, to accommodate what Greg is asking, that his wording, his concerns be reflected?
The motion is to approve the minutes with the appendix.
With the motion is to approve the minutes and,
With the
assuming that Jessica's going to incorporate Greg's comments.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor? We're done.
Aye.
Great. Okay, so let's get to water level, and yeah, as you said, you would like to do this as quickly as
Yeah.
possible, so let you. speak
What
about
I thought, we could, we talked about that we will be modifying our rules, we're not gonna be tied lockstep in with.
it. Right.
So here's what we would typically be looking at, and if Jessica, if you could put the first piece up. And I'm just gonna go through the 5 pictures, if you will. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is good. This is the US Drought Monitor, and it shows you the intensity of drought from none to exceptional drought. And this is a picture of the Northeast region, and you can see here that it's a kind of a complicated picture right here. Nassau County and the Twin Forks are in abnormally dry, and the center of Suffolk County is in none. There is moderate drought in this area here. There's a lot more area that is abnormally dry, and you can see where down here the colors get worse. So this is one of the things that we would be saying when we sit down to say, what do we want to tell the town about what we think the drought, our drought situation is. Okay, next one, please. Now, this is what New York State provides, all right? So these are supposed to be equivalent. And this is all normal, and normal means not in drought. So this would be a piece of information that probably wouldn't do a whole lot for the town board, I think, in terms of it has almost nothing compared to what the drought monitor has. But this is what we would be looking at right now and using as our basis or rationale for telling the town board, this is the situation we think is happening. Okay, well, how about the next one? This is that ranking chart. It's by percentage of historic values. And we're down here at about 20%. What these numbers represent is comparing our current month to our history of that month. And you can see we had a dramatic and wonderful quantity of water about 2 years ago, and it has continued now to drop down. When you see a big jump like this, that shows that there was a major change between months. And you can see this is a smaller change, so the size of change is reducing. And this again would be as an illustration of where we are compared to our history.
And this is seasonally adjusted.
This is, and that's the way
Month
that it's
adjusted by
done. All right,
month, so it's comparison of this month compared to this month every year previously. Doug has his hand up as well with a question.
Greg, I have a question. So just looking at March readings across that chart, going back to, what does it go back to, 2018?
16.
It looks like March 2025 is the lowest March reading across this time series.
That's actually correct.
No.
I think that it is the lowest March read. I don't think it's,
I'm not saying it's the
those
lowest.
other dips that are
Yeah,
lower
that-
are
I mean,
summer
I'll put it
read.
that way.
The
Yes.
point is the seasonality of rainfall and recharge the aquifer.
And the point is that it's just that it has changed. We're getting
Well, it
droughts
just,
at
you know,
lower amounts.
We're
at
not in a
different times.
place that normally we would be,
Correct.
judging by March readings.
That's, you're reading it correctly.
You're absolutely right, and that's what we would be telling the town board, saying, we're nervous here. There's one caveat that unfortunately, because of, we received our numbers from the USGS early. We were shooting to get them at the end of the month. For whatever reason, this month, they did them early.
So March readings.
Yeah, the March numbers, really, it's really a week and a half of March.
So it's
So
maybe
this
premature?
yes, we could, but that would be something that we would want to bring up to the town board as well. And I meant to bring that up.
Because, I mean, just looking at those numbers alone for March readings, that's concerning to me. If I'm looking at the March reading for today, looking back to 2015 and seeing that it is the lowest March over that time period.
I was looking at the screen of the rainfall, and I was like pushing it over, like, out there about 50 miles, there's plenty of rain still falling, but that's another story.
I was just gonna say, something else to consider is actually the temperatures at that time, because if the ground is frozen solid, you're not gonna get as much absorption. So, back in 2016, I just searched it, the ground was pretty frozen during
Yeah.
2016 in Long Island. So that is another factor as to the absorption rate. So you might see that pick up in April as everything thaws and actually percolates down through the ground.
And the additional piece to that would be the, never mind.
Frost, March, winter.
Yes,
I'm trying.
whatever.
It's okay.
Next slide.
Yeah, we have a feeling,
All right,
but we
this
set
looks
our
like a whole lot of numbers, and it is a lot of numbers. Your question about March, this is our history of Goat Hill. Again, it's about 22 data points. And the median value we have for this time of year, 6.76, that's the height. Right now it's 6.18, not horrible, you know, some of the others. So this, I think, softens some of the other looks, but,
Softens the graph before this one.
yeah, I think so.
When did you get the readings from the
Oh, I
USGS?
think the 11th,
The 11th?
yeah. So then the last piece, which I think builds on what Doug said, now these are raw numbers. These are not, this is just the numbers that are happening in this time frame, in these time frame. You can see this is.
in the big four wells.
Right,
in
this
the
is
largest
the most recent numbers, which was 3/11 and 2005. You can see, I started this, I guess, saying that there was a little tiny upburst on all four of them, which is maybe due to frost, I'm not too sure. Some of the things that you look at on this, there's no correcting for season, and that's why it goes up and down based on the season, based on the month. What we had here, though, which was encouraging, well, maybe not encouraging, is a situation like this here, where it looks like, okay, we're low here, but taking these numbers compared to that number to these values, we're not so bad on that Goat Hill. This is only the big four wells. The peaks here on the blues especially, and the greens, that was the highest level that we had, and it was almost always in May. So May is that break point of, it's warmer, there's trees are sucking up more water, and there's more people here.
Well, you can see that it goes up and down.
Yeah, it goes up and down.
That's,
So this is without that, trying to rationalize it to these. So what we would be, I think, I don't think we want to do this now. I think next month, we'll try and get the numbers closer to our meeting date. And we can try and make sure, run through this at a meeting or however we want to do it. And think about how we want to communicate, formalize the thinking of how we're going to communicate to the town board in the future, and not just count on the numbers. We felt hamstrung last time.
Right.
With
Well,
the old
Andrew had
system.
suggested that it's
So-
important to.
are we trying to sort of consolidate the federal drought monitor, the state, and then the local numbers? Is that what we're trying to do to come up with a comprehensive?
Those 5 slides would be the graphics of what we're looking at. That's correct.
Are we trying to consolidate into like just one advisory?
Yes, into the town board, we're not gonna say, because of that number, you have to stop people having water at their restaurants, which is the way we had written it earlier. And it didn't work, because this time period just gave us crazy results.
Yeah.
All right, however, just as well, thank you very much, Greg. Right, yeah, let's, in keeping to the clock, the one thing that seemed that you had communicated that seemed to me that we all should just be absorbing is that we're at a low now, that 20% below our average, at an earlier time than we're used to having our low. We've had the previous lows, the comparable lows that match what we're at now, were summertime lows. And we're having as we go into the spring, a low. So it's concerning enough to look at, especially for the near shore areas.
In an inverse, when we had that large bump of water, we didn't get a lot of rainfall subsequent to that. but the number, it didn't drop dramatically because it had the water that was available, it started so high.
And it's a little surprising that we haven't yet seen recharge from what seems to be some snowfall, some rain, some, last night's very heavy, but again, last night.
I can give you a couple of.
Take it.
Yeah, where are we at?
Sounds like,
Today was a good day, basically. Last night, we had some really fine rain. Basically, our numbers from just last night, basically, we had 1.67 inches on that rainbow, which is one of the best ones we've had this March so far. The initial one was back on the 7th with 0.44 inches. So taking a look at the totals for this time of the year, adding up for March, we have 7.34 inches in total for this month. And we have some more rain in the forecast for the coming weeks, okay? So that number is going to go up. How does it compare? Compares pretty well, quite honestly, with the past Marches. In fact, it's kind of right in the middle. It go all the way down from 2021, where we had 3 inches, 2.99 inches, all the way up to a high in 2024 at 8.3 inches in the month of March. And then from a year standpoint, year-to-date March, basically the best we've ever had was in 2024. We had 18 inches in that period of time. And the least we've ever had was about 9.35 inches in March. So March is a consistently heavy recharge period for us. And it's been consistent. The other thing I want to add is we've never had an instance where we ran out of water. We haven't had a situation where we've gotten phone calls from people saying, I don't have water. Well, that I can recall.
Unless there are
Or
specific
even-
situations like,
Actually, West Nile Water
yeah.
did run out of water in 2002.
which is why
We did.
Yeah.
why John Holman was so sensitized to the
Yeah.
to the quantity rather than quality of water. Okay, but again,
Yeah, that's just my piece.
thank you, Ken. So it seems like, there's a little bit going into the spring, we just have to be aware that well levels are a little unusually low. And that's the takeaway.
And it was cold, like.
Yeah, that's the takeaway, and we continue to monitor. Okay, but we're gonna do this every month, so let's move on to things that are unique to this particular month. And I put first on the agenda, Andrew was responding to something that was said at the last meeting, and that brought up the topic, what is the town's responsibility to its residents vis-a-vis, I assume, their drinking water and their healthful aquifer or environment. And Andrew's done some thoughtful work as to, his take on that, but I think it's intended to stimulate discussion, so. Andrew, but, try to keep it to 5 minutes.
Yep. So when I was being interviewed by this board, I was asked, what did I think the town's responsibility was, given that the town doesn't own all the water assets? I didn't have an answer. Had too much to learn. I still don't know. But I've gotten to the point where I can write a 1.5-page memo. And last month, Gordon asked the same question. And actually, this question keeps coming up and kind of lurks in the side of a lot of the conversations where we have about running testing programs and the data and what we should do with the data and so forth. So I wrote a note up with the intent of framing the question, and just to stimulate a discussion, I put some answers. I look forward to being informed by different views around the table. So I boiled it down to 3 questions. And the overarching question is, what responsibility does the town have for the quality of the water obtained from private wells? That was the overarching question, as I recall. I took that question and broke it into 3 different questions. 1, what defines safe? 2, what should the town, if anything, should the town do to make sure water is safe? And then 3, what, if anything, should the town pay for? Now, here were my answers. And look, again, this is just to stimulate the discussion. These are just my answers at this point, before I'm informed by all of you. 1, safe means potable according to applicable New York State and federal regulations. So whatever those MCLs are, that is the definition of safe. Okay, so that was that answer. Next, what should the town do? I thought the town needs to do 3, possibly 4 things. 1, it makes rules. And when it makes rules that are designed to ensure that the well water is potable for under foreseeable circumstances. So when it makes rules around septic tanks, when it makes rules around lot sizes, when it makes rules around setbacks, distances between wells and septic tanks and so forth and so on, those rules should be guided by the desire for potable water in the wells. Okay? Second thing the town should do is that it should follow the applicable rules with respect to its own properties. So the town owns real estate. The town should conduct itself so that with respect to its own properties, the water obtained from its wells and the neighbors' wells and so forth reaches that potable water standard. Third thing the town should do is support an informed public dialogue about well water quality and quantity throughout the island. That dialogue should be based on scientifically valid data and expert input. That entails a rigorous and ongoing water quality testing program, and the data from that program should be available to the public. And based on that informed dialogue, the test results, the input from experts, the town should periodically recommend to its residents what they should think about doing with respect to their wells. Then the fourth is, with respect to any public infrastructure, if any was ever built, that the capital and operating costs of public infrastructure be borne by their users and their beneficiaries. And the beneficiaries of that system. Users is pretty obvious. If you're pulling water out of a system, you pay a rate. Beneficiaries is broader because the beneficiaries of a system could be the broader public. And because the quality of the aquifer is a public good.
Restaurants.
So that's a little loose, but intentionally loose. And then finally, the town's costs for the first 3, the rulemaking processes, the town properties, and the supporting of this informed dialogue and the testing program and so forth, that should be an ongoing town expense because of the importance of the quality of the aquifer to all of us. So that's how I took Gordon's question from the last meeting, which is,
Systematize it.
and that's how I broke it into 3 different questions. And that's how I tentatively answered those questions. What I didn't do was try to figure out what the recent amendment was to the state constitution and how to operationalize that. I kind of said, well,
And Lisa has taken that, so you can talk to Lisa at some point when you're.
I didn't really get into that. I just said, okay, here's my cut at it. Okay, enough.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. It's very thoughtful, and everybody has the letter. It's posted on our site. I would, well, let me say nothing. Lisa, did you want to?
Yeah, could we put up that document that I circulated today? I'm sorry. And really, there's so much information with regards to Article 1, Section 19 of the New York Constitution, that you can go through there and look for yourselves. There's an awful lot of information about it.
Well, let's just start with
Yes, ma'am.
reading the actual constitutional amendment. It's very simple, it's very short.
Okay,
And it didn't say only
read it?
people who are on public water system.
it says, each person shall have a right to clean air and water and a healthful environment. This particular paper comes from New York's, this comes from a group of agencies that are trying to interpret it. Basically, what it comes down to, it gives the state more authority, and locales and the individual more authority, another reference point to perhaps take care of issues of water contamination. But it's going to be interpreted by courts, is what it comes down to. But it's there as a reference for whoever wants to use it. It can be thrown out there, and this paper that I picked out said that, hopefully it's not an abstract concept, but it's going to be a tool for the courts to use in deciding how to protect citizens, and for citizens how to protect themselves from potable water. So I did highlight, if you could just scroll down, I highlighted a couple of things, and I just want to read that very carefully.
And can we zoom in just a little bit as well, Jessica, do you think? That helps.
All right, the first highlight on the left says, with the additional requirement of the New York environmental right, it is now imperative that agencies, municipalities, planning boards, and other governmental entities protect every person's fundamental right to clean air and water and a healthful environment in their decision-making, including zoning decisions, approval of environmental reviews, and permitting decisions for polluting facilities. Government officials must consider whether projects or other government actions will be detrimental to environmental rights, even if other existing legal protections are followed. And then the other highlighted on the right column says, as people and organizations bring lawsuits in court invoking the environmental right, judges will decide the meaning and applicability of this constitutional protection. So as far as using this protection with regards to answering the question, how responsible are municipalities in protecting, in getting involved in water rights, I think it's pretty clear that the state, anyway, regards water, air, and the environment as not part of private property, but part of shared property that we all share as citizens.
The aquifer.
The aquifer. It doesn't stop at property lines. It transgresses, so we have to take a collective action to protect it.
Well said.
So I think that this is yet another way of interpreting what is our responsibility.
Well, I think, if I could just comment.
Sure.
I think that the town is already doing so with the IA system requirements. That's not for your benefit, that's for the benefit of the aquifer in general and your neighbors.
So, and it does speak to the last item on our agenda, which I intend to get to this time, which is this municipal, or just a discussion of the town's discussion about the municipal center. But while we're on this topic, I want to make this more concrete. So we can talk about all of this in the abstract, but right across the street here, we have somebody who seems to be wanting to make himself a test case and has a big red sign in his store window saying this place has to be a food establishment and the renter has to pay for filtration. So in the rulemaking process, that I don't know how we all feel about that, but I felt that here we have a very specific case where somebody is saying, town's not taking responsibility. I mean, so far, according to how they feel, I'm not going to take responsibility. And the result is the result of the kind of attitude of this particular property owner has been a series of derelict properties in the town center.
So I don't want to respond to that particular situation because I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
What I did not say in my paper
Uh-huh.
was that the town is responsible for the outcome. In other words, I don't believe the town should be responsible for the quality of the water in everyone's individual well. The simple reason is that the town does not own that asset, does not manage that asset, had nothing to do with the design, the operation of all those assets.
Uh-huh.
That's where I distinguish between the town's role and my role in the past in the water utility business, where we owned the water treatment plants. We
Clearly
owned the
legally
distribution.
responsible for the quality of the water you delivered.
We controlled the management of the assets, and therefore we were responsible for what came out of the water quality at the meter. And that was fine because we controlled it. So the town doesn't have that degree of authority. So and look, this is opinion, this is personal opinion. I don't believe the town should be responsible for the quality of the water in the individual wells. So that's where I got to, okay, what is the town's responsibility? Well, it's to make rules that are designed to ensure the quality of the water in that collective resource. Issues about the town's own properties and how it conducts its own properties, that's, in my opinion, the town's same as anybody else.
They're responsible.
They're responsible because of their own properties. So,
But it does bleed out of, I mean, like what's produced in the municipal center doesn't stay in the municipal center. It goes across the road.
sure, but that should be,
Right.
that should be covered by the town's own rules. And
Well, I agree,
so
but, okay, so.
So that's why I really don't want to get into,
Well, but not everybody is an owner. We have people who are renting, we have guests, we have Airbnbs, we have, right? So the water that's consumed, the ultimate consumer needs some layer of protection because they don't control this resource either. The homeowner does. The homeowner is ultimately responsible. I liked what you said about you want to regulate toward the result, which is that people are drinking clean water, safe water.
yeah, but the result is intentional. The town has a responsibility, in my construct, the town has a responsibility to make rules with the intent that the water is potable, but the town is not responsible for the result. It's not financially responsible for the result because it doesn't own the assets, in my construct.
Can you differentiate?
Yeah.
Okay, can you give me an example?
If I have a home with a septic tank and in a neighborhood with a bunch of other septic tanks, and everybody in that neighborhood, okay, has a compliant system that's properly operating
According to the law.
according to the law,
Right.
and my water is non-potable in my well, that is not the town's responsibility to fix. Because it's my well. I don't know if it's properly
Let's
designed.
take it one more step, and you are renting your house to someone else,
Then the issue, and this is in my construct,
right?
the issue is between the tenant and the landlord.
It's a tenant-landlord dispute.
Yes, you rented me a house and there's non-potable water in it, fix it.
Well, yes,
Okay,
but
and I just-
who does the tenant appeal to?
He sues the landlord
Based on
based on the fact
the
that.
landlord has a
have
responsibility to
Yes.
provide, so the landlord has the responsibility to provide potable water.
Look, I'm not making legal judgments here. I'm saying in my construct, yes, that's a landlord-tenant issue because that is no different than renting a house with a leaky
But
roof.
then does the town have a responsibility to promulgate a rule that says, in that landlord-tenant dispute, the landlord has the responsibility to provide potable water out there if they're gonna rent their.
I don't know enough.
Yeah, that's a.
I don't know.
That's
That's a
precisely,
legal question.
it is, yes, and we don't have a lawyer right now in the
Yeah.
town,
I don't know.
so.
I'm trying to come up with, I'm trying to articulate a policy and I'm way out over my skis.
Well, but.
Okay, so
This
in
is
my,
what we're tasked with wrestling with. Right.
in my construct,
Uh-huh.
that situation is no different than a home with a leaky roof or a home with a faulty electric system, or whatever else. That the issue, the remediation there is between the landlord and the tenant.
Except a leaky roof is fixable and it's on your property. Your electricity is on your property. Your water isn't really on your property.
Tell the landlord
The only thing that you own as a homeowner is the mechanics of drawing that resource, which is really owned by the state, from the ground.
Yeah,
So you own the mechanics.
you tell the landlord to put in a treatment system.
Okay, but I'm just trying to say here, we don't
The
own the
tenant
water.
goes to court,
The courts tell them.
yes, put in a
Well,
treatment
yeah, it's
system.
going, this is all going to be tested in court ultimately.
Yes, put in a treatment system.
Okay, so,
My
Yeah, no,
response.
I hear you, yeah.
But I don't think you can put the town in the responsibility of guaranteeing the result, because the town, there's too much that the town doesn't control.
so the town must, so your suggestion is the town must control, it must not be operating, must control its own, wherever it has control over the
assets.
systems, it must operate by rules that would
Can I-
promote healthy drinking water.
I just one question, and this is, again, this is maybe philosophical, I don't know. Is the town a trustee and a steward of resources? Is the town, I think that has to be asked, is the town a trustee for resources? Yeah, I
I don't know
What do you
really
think?
what that word is.
A trustee, someone, a
Is
guardian.
responsible
a steward.
for.
And this is how they exercise their responsibility. So for example, let's take it another step.
Yeah,
We have a near shore area.
yeah.
Because of rising sea level, we're getting chlorides.
Homeowners are being subjected to that.
That is not the town's responsibility to fix under this construct. Under this construct. You
I'm
can
not
argue
sure.
about the
So
construct.
I mean, I'm, again, that you rightly point out, this is your construct.
This is just a construct,
Right.
okay? It's
No,
not,
but it's good,
So
it's a
Meg,
good
Meg, did
discussion.
you have a comment that you, no, okay. So now, we have nearshore people here, we have people who live in the center here. Does the town have a response? Do we all agree? Do we feel that the town has no responsibility for helping homeowners or addressing the issue?
Basically, you're saying purity of water.
Well, in the face of sea
Other
level
than
rise in
three.
nearshore areas.
other than three, which is
Yeah,
an
Doug
informed
had
dialogue.
his hand up.
I would say that, as Andrew started to say, number 3 in his list, I do think the town has a responsibility to understand what the situation is,
And make sure homeowners
Data.
understand it.
to have the information.
That's three.
Because otherwise, you're flying blind. You don't know where you started. In your scenario, which could be a hurricane just as easily
Uh-huh.
as rising saltwater or sea level levels. Then you have saltwater intrusion or some other form of chloride contamination. And if you don't know, you don't know. You need a benchmark.
Right.
So the town has a responsibility to shine light.
Yeah, at a minimum, at least
At minimum.
to have it on an organized manner so that they have this data at their disposal.
Which includes testing.
Which
Yeah, that's how you get the data.
That's right.
Okay, so I don't want to short circuit this, or cut short this conversation. We will not get to a final conclusion. We will not promulgate laws. We will not, this is not what we do. We're open, this is a conversation we're just opening right now is, how to think about the town's responsibility. And it's a topic on which we're going to need the lawyers, legal advice. We're going to study what other communities have done. We have to, and yes, and we're going to need the community. So Howard.
Yes, town is controlled by the county. Suffolk County Health Department sets those
Well,
standards.
that's a lot of these standards.
So the county is more responsible for the health of the people than the town really.
And often the town has to respond to
The health
demands of the health department.
Dictates what the town has to do.
Right.
So it's the county that we have to, like their respect to our water system with the IA systems, they're 3.5 years behind.
Mhm.
It's not the town's fault that the county cannot respond. Now they just put in extra tax to try to respond.
Mhm.
But there's still, I mean,
Denise, then we're gonna be at this for years to come.
many years to come.
Let's hope we have,
And
we have
to
used
get
it.
in a lot of other things, like thinking about getting another Suffolk County water system, because it's not improving. I was up at Mashonack Saturday with the Peconic Estuary Program, monitoring the sea rise. They're changing all their paths because the sea rise is coming up.
Uh-huh.
And the whole, not only Shelter Island, but the whole island has to be resolved, that system. And I don't think the town has the expertise to do that. And even the county might not have it. It's like the state.
But you brought in the topic of additional water supply, which, you know, we kind of deliberately didn't directly address that. But is your suggestion that the town it has a responsibility to explore wherever there are opportunities for additional water supply? Is that your point?
Yes, the town has.
That's the feeling of you as a community citizen, right?
To do this, I mean, individual citizen doesn't know.
Can't do that. Doesn't have the capacity.
And I don't think the Water Advisory Committee knows what the quality.
No, unless Suffolk County Water tests Satcham's Woods, unless the USGS takes a look at different.
Right, exactly.
The state has already given, and I know I'm harping on the same old chord here, the state has already given every citizen of Suffolk County the ability to access potable water through the creation of the Public Benefit Corporation, which is what we call Suffolk County Water Authority. We as individuals already have that ability for potable water and that right. That's there for us, regardless of anybody else, whether it's, you know, the health department or whoever. We have that right as individuals. The state has mandated that to SQA, pardon my funspun, okay, for this purpose, to make sure that people have
Right,
potable
so,
water.
but the question is that within Andrew's construct?
Yes.
In other words.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Well, I know it is,
definitely.
but are you putting it within Andrew's contract text? In other words.
I'm not putting it in there.
If we have a right to go have a public water system somewhere else or extend a public water system, if we as citizens have that right,
We already have it.
do the citizens who are exercising that right have to pay? Or does the town have a responsibility to share that, or in some fashion, the burden of the costs of that, of making that a reality?
Okay, so I need to answer.
Okay?
Because
Go for it, Doug.
in my drafting, okay, I actually was thinking about these things.
Mhm.
The last sentence of 3 is, based on the results of such testing and other matters, the town may recommend that residents take specific actions, either individually or with others, to ensure their water is potable. I was thinking of the Suffolk County Water Authority in that sentence.
Yeah,
And I was also.
Center businesses here that don't want their renter to pay for it.
And I was also thinking of a recommendation that certain well owners put in point of use treatment systems. That sentence embraces all of that. The public infrastructure part basically says the beneficiaries of these systems, if they're ever built, and users should pay the costs. So if a near shore area on the island wanted public water to address a chlorides issue for 100 customers,
In some fashion, it would have to,
in some fashion, it would come together and it would go to Suffolk County Water Authority and it would say, this is what we want, can you do something for us?
so for
And then-
example, Daring Harbor has taken. Right, so the 20 homeowners there did a 40-year lease directly with Suffolk County Water Authority. They worked, however, with the entity of their town, even though it's only 20 homes, the entire
And they're
town.
paying solely.
But they are paying.
But they could,
Well, are they not?
no,
There's no bond, there's no tax funding.
No, well, they pay.
They
They
pay
pay
the
through
rate.
taxation, they're,
They pay through taxation.
through the village.
Right,
okay.
through the village is
We
paying.
are different, West Neck Water,
I
the
know.
Heights is different.
Well, and I know the Heights and West Neck Water, since we have you here, we know that the Heights and West Neck Water are constructed differently. Do the residents of West Neck Water District carry all the costs?
All the costs.
It's entirely upon that community.
Entirely upon the community. Do we have the advantage of bonding with the town? Yes, we have had that advantage since our inception.
So the town is collaborating with you, but the
Exactly.
payment, the actually paying the 40-year.
That's all on West Neck
It's
Water
all on
District.
the
Yes.
customers, and that,
And
Which
we
is-
have, okay,
doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
I know,
Because when we penciled out what a water system might look like in the middle of the town, and I worked through the economics of that,
right,
if the Suffolk County Water Authority actually owns the assets, which would be a community decision,
right,
not necessarily one I'm advocating or not,
right,
then that system gets the benefit of their capital and operating cost subsidies, which are large.
mhm,
A nearshore community could do the same thing.
mhm,
Or they could build the system on their own,
mhm.
shoulder all of the costs themselves, and either run it themselves or hire someone to run it, like Suffolk County Water Authority under a lease.
Or the earlier version of West Neck Water District.
Right. But this language embraces all those options.
Mhm.
Because under 3, what you're saying is, pick up Doug's point, the town's primary role is to have an informed, scientific, statistically valid-based dialogue about this, so that people know what's going on, can make decisions about it either privately or collectively through various things available to them, such as treating their own wells or some kind of a collective action. There are different ways they could do that. And the town under 3 needs to facilitate that discussion and that discussion of alternatives and helping those people reach a decision, whatever it
Including
is.
the necessary testing to see
Yes.
what is possible.
and isn't
Whatever,
that,
whatever that decision is. I'm not like steering it this way or
Yeah,
that.
you know, I get the
isn't that
final
what we
decision
have
is.
been, as an advisory board, isn't that what we have been doing for the last 2 years?
Or more.
I think so.
I feel that we have been trying to move in this direction.
Yeah.
You know, there's stops and starts to it, but this is where we're trying to get to. As other communities and municipalities have already got to this point of protecting its citizens. As the Suffolk Health Department wants every community to go to. They want everybody on protected water.
Yeah, I have one issue with some of this, which is interesting from a legal standpoint. We've known that we've had high nitrates in the
Particularly in
center
the
since
center.
1977, in that timeframe, right? And we know known about it as long as.
And I would just add to
Right.
that we, in 2016, when we sponsored
Did
the USGS testing,
Right.
that the center well was above 10 milligrams, and that shortly thereafter, the Legion Hall, the school, and
Yeah.
the church all tested non-potable.
Right.
We've known that for a long time. We've also known that the town municipal center here just has a cesspool underneath it.
Yeah, and my next point has to do with that nitrates are humanly caused. I mean, that's it. There's no other place to get them in this island environment. We flush them, in essence, is what we do. Since we've known about it for so long and we've allowed this to occur for so long,
We have a
is there
responsibility.
any legal responsibility
I think
From the
we're
standpoint
concerned that we have a
of the
legal
bigger-
responsibility.
of the bigger picture that this is spreading through our whole environment?
Right.
Because that's what nitrates
Right.
do in the water. They kind of disperse. They don't
Right.
just stick on an area.
This is my point. I think we are vulnerable.
Yeah, there is some, to me, illegal,
I didn't get
I
into
don't
it.
know.
because
I know, I
I don't really
understand.
know the history.
And again, right, but again, well, Meg,
I was
absolutely.
just gonna say that we may have known about it since the 70s, but there was no technology available to attempt to respond to the issue.
Right.
So once the technology started coming online in 2018, I think that the county has made those decisions to try to address the issue through their legislation and by making these programs available and by using taxpayer dollars, you know, to do it, because it's supporting the entire environment, the entirety of Long Island and Stanton
Right.
County. So I think that everything's moving in the right direction. It's just a matter of technology catching up. with
Catching up.
phones,
And
you know?
And money.
And so, and money. I mean, money's a big factor.
Money is a huge thing, and
And we haven't even addressed the next thing coming up. PFOS isn't.
well, and the need to deal with emerging contaminants. So, again, I started by saying we're never gonna get to the end of this conversation. Let's close now on this particular part of the agenda. I wanna point out that I'd like to move one element in the agenda up a little bit. Doug and Ken might be slightly disturbed, but I wanna move the irrigation subcommittee briefing up. But before we do so, I just wanna, very briefly, ask Lisa to touch on the overall mission statement,
Well, yes, when I went
which follows the
to
conversation.
the, our website, okay, on the town WAC website, and I'm just gonna pull it up very quickly here if I can. There were three different mission statements. Now I
Could you put it up on
realize,
the screen, Lisa?
I don't
share
know
your
if I can
screen?
share screen.
Can you allow her to share a screen?
Well, you have to be logged onto the Zoom in order to share your screen.
Well, but Jen,
You know what, I'd like to do this, it's very quick, okay, and I don't know that we need, you can do this when you
Okay,
get
cool.
home, okay?
okay, so yeah, make the
So,
point that you wanna make, and then we should.
When we go to the, if you want to jot it down, when we go to the webpage, there's a WAC member wanted with mission statement, and our mission statement is delineated there, it's
Although
there.
that is the one that was done for, that you did, that was done for potable water and doesn't take into account like the language of the New York State Constitutional Amendment that says clean water, clean air.
No, it
And a
doesn't.
healthful environment. So the environment, I think, has always been a part of our mission as well. If our lakes and estuaries and bays all become toxic, we're not going to succeeding at our mission either.
And when you go to the, again, I'm on the WAC website, webpage, there is a mission statement on the right column, okay? Now, this is antiquated, I believe, and it's a PowerPoint. So it kind of, I don't know, it
It's an
kind of
old
looks.
one, yep, I know that
It's
one.
an old one. So where I'm going with this is all of these should be dated so that if people are looking for information and they see information that doesn't correspond with other information, they should say, oh, well, this was 2016. I don't see any evidence of that on here. All right, so all I'm saying is we should probably put dates on to show it which mission statement we're abiding by right now.
of them, you're right.
All right.
Don't you just delete?
Go ahead.
Can I make a recommendation that
Okay.
you look at all the mission statements and consolidate them into one?
Consolidate, right. And
Sure.
not, again, not at this meeting, but it
Well,
becomes.
no, but I think that, yes, I mean, I'll do that. I'll do that.
We've already agreed on a mission statement, I thought.
The mission statement we agreed on is for one of our goals.
One of
Like
our
our
goals.
earlier mission statement said, that everybody would have nitrogen below a certain level in terms of what their effluent was. Everybody would have access to safe drinking water, and that our surface waters would not be impacted by, negatively impacted by our usage of the water.
And then the other mission statement, which I can't find on here now, but I had seen it earlier, was the working mission statement before the one that is now aligned with the
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
application. And it was the one that was redlined. But even that was different than what we've ended up with here. So I would just advise all of us to go and look at the mission statement.
And
that
consolidate
it is
it.
in-
And this goes in the next year, over the course of the next year, we need to be revisiting the ground and surface water management plan.
Yeah.
It's out of date, it needs to be updated, and so this goes
So
together.
that's what we're supposed to do, it's in the
Yeah.
plan, basically, we.
Yeah, that we, yeah, okay,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm just gonna very quickly, on our webpage, Click here for description and how to apply for WAC member wanted with mission statement. It's a PDF, so I would advise all of us just to go there, look at it, and say, is this what we approved? Because it's different than the one that we worked on, and especially you, Andrew, because you were very responsible for this language.
Right.
I'm throwing it back.
It's pretty much what you developed, but what you developed was not to be our entire mission statement.
Okay, so what I developed wasn't really a mission
No,
statement.
it really wasn't.
It was a how statement.
Was it, yes.
So the mission statement and how we're actually going to achieve it are two different things.
But they should come together.
Well, or one should follow the other.
Yes, be an addendum.
Because Peter, for example, in his language and understanding of this, is consistently more holistic than I am.
Right.
I tend to be very
Narrow.
focused on drinking water.
Which I think our mission goes beyond that.
Correct.
Safe and healthful
I agree with you,
environment.
and you remind me of that each time we talk about this, which is fine.
Okay, I will make it a point to put all of these mission statements together
Lord have mercy.
and circulate them, and then we
So
can
we
have
an
discussion.
email discussion.
So,
And what I'm suggesting to you a little bit is leave the one I wrote, aside because it's more of a process document.
yes,
It's not a mission statement.
so retitle it.
Okay, process.
It's a process.
Well, then the question begs here is, should this be where it is?
I didn't put it there.
Yeah, I know, none of us did.
I
So,
don't know.
okay,
But it isn't a bad statement
Right.
there. Though we didn't do it, I think it's a great thing. So,
Meg, do you know how it got here?
Yeah, if it's posted with the job opening, it was Coco.
Right, so,
Trying to do it for
Just emphasize.
people who are applying for the open position and understanding of what you do.
okay,
So in that sense, it's a good document to have posted,
Right,
because it's the process you're gonna follow once
Right,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
all right, so there's no harm in
There's
having
no
this.
harm, no foul,
But still, it's right for us to coalesce around a
Yes.
single mission statement, overall mission
Yes,
statement.
many of them over the years.
And we have had many of them. And again, this is these, I want to move from abstract to more concrete work. So if we're okay for the moment with the mission statement discussion, I'd like to bring Sean, are you online with us, Sean? Back for a subcommittee report back. We've made progress as an irrigation subcommittee. And we've had good participation, not everybody at each meeting. Doug's been part of it, but we've had a good 10 or 11 people representing different stakeholders, from landscapers to people living in nearshore areas to people, a few of us on the Water Advisory Committee, or no more than 3 or 2, because we want a subcommittee to be a subcommittee that reports back to us. And Sean has been awesome in terms of keeping us sort of, let's have a work product, let's get something done. And so this is we're work in progress now, but Sean, would you like to comment on what it is we're working on at this point? And would you like to show it at all? We have it on, again, it's on the work in progress is on our discussion documents. Maybe we should just open it up to get a feeling for work in progress. Sean, are you there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep, absolutely.
So, I feel free if you want to bring it up. I'll be quick. First of all, happy St. Patrick's Day, and thank God it's raining out there. Not to be too repetitive, but clearly Peter organized this irrigation subcommittee kind of a year or so ago. It had board members, WAC members, interested parties, which would include me, and some folks that had some specialized irrigation expertise. I think our goals were pretty loose, but the backdrop was largely focused on education. And then, kind of way in the background, knowing that the board was not, as far as we know, planning to take up any code changes with irrigation regulation in the near term. Kind of education took center stage. So this group, got together over a period of time, a number of meetings, and it was really trying to get a common understanding of a number of things. What are the pros and cons of irrigation, knowing that, irrigation isn't all bad, but it can be harmful if overused, or, if it's used inefficiently. what do we see that homeowners are doing on Shelter Island? What does a code allow and not allow? What are best practices generally? And what are new ways to think about tackling irrigation, both in technology and landscaping techniques? And so, I certainly learned something in the process, so I thought it was helpful, and it was very collegial discussion. I think what in trying to push something forward as an outcome, at least in the near term, we've kind of tentatively tried to proceed with some sort of educational pamphlet for the summer.
Just one moment, Sean, and Jessica, do you have the PowerPoint version that, because Lisa has it up on her screen, it was emailed to all of us? I guess that was not the version that we put up on the discussion documents, but it's just a little more visual.
Yeah, that's the old version, so the
Yeah,
other.
that's an earlier version. The work in progress, we've gone beyond this to,
So is the PowerPoint the updated version, Sean?
yes.
There's 2 PowerPoints. It's really a version 2, and it kind of added some pictures in and the like. I would, to be honest, I wouldn't focus on necessarily looking at that in my comments at the moment,
Okay.
rather than kind of looking forward, because we are so in progress. But we tentatively decided to try to proceed with some sort of educational pamphlet. It is in the same vein that there was work done on fertilizer and put into a pamphlet that was really a good work product. So I think what we ideally thought is that if we can create something similar, put it in a pamphlet form. Pamphlets are certainly helpful, but part of our thought process was to try to enlist all the community or homeowners associations on Shelter Island to push it out in some sort of PDF form and create some discussion within their own community, knowing that pamphlets can kind of sit. So try to use it a little bit more proactively. There is a PowerPoint. We can get the PowerPoint, up on discussion documents on the website.
Get the PowerPoint, because making it visually appealing and visually self-explanatory, which is, you begin to see in the PowerPoint, is.
You want me to share it with you, Jessica? The PowerPoint? All right, let
Or
me see.
if you can share it with all.
Well, I have to be on Zoom, which I'm not.
Or you could just email it to her and
Yeah.
then she can.
Okay, I'm
You
gonna
have it ready.
see what I can do right now.
So while that's happening, Sean, you were also asking to collaborate with Tim on the Green Committee?
Yeah,
Is that-
part of it is, we dumped a lot of information into this PowerPoint to try to just kind of create a kitchen sink and then start to refine and, what is reasonable to communicate in some sort of concise manner. What are the main things that we want to focus on, knowing that there's a lot. And so there's a lot of refinement to take place. Part of that is, I don't necessarily have the expertise on laying out a pamphlet once we do have the information, although Tim Purcell indicated that he was actually someone who did a bunch of that formatting, and he pointed me to this software in Apple that you can kind of fiddle with. So I've been spending my mornings
doing.
to learn that a little bit to progress it, and then we can kind of decide based on limitations of layout and length, what we can include. There is some work to be done on understanding some nuances of the code that personally I'm a little confused about, so I need to chase up. But all in all, what we're trying to communicate today is we have a work in progress. We welcome input. If we get a version up on the website, it's very much in the midst of the process. But if people are interested and they want to look at it, and they have particular ideas or input, I think, all is welcome. We're trying to be very transparent, and, as many hands that can help, would be wonderful. I'll progress it. I'll be on the island next week, and I can sit down with a few of you and kind of think about kind of narrowing and focusing the messaging a little bit. But it is generally supposed to be, educational, teaching people about the code, giving them a little bit of warning about the risks of upconing and the like, letting them think a little larger about how they're using the water for irrigation more generally. And we hope if we can do that leading into the summer, particularly with some of the things you're talking about, well readings, should we be in a somewhat compromised position, that people will be a little bit more diligent in the way they, choose to irrigate their properties.
All right, well, thank you very much, Sean. And were you exchanging the documents?
Yeah, but it's a little bit more involved than
Okay, so-
simple airdrop.
Okay, we can come back and revisit, but we're now getting to,
I will send it to Jessica so that she can circulate it to everybody.
and put it on the, instead of the one that's up there now, let's put the, okay, very good. Yeah, again, because it does begin to communicate visually, and that's important. Okay, so moving on to, Ken had a suggestion for us in terms of the Suffolk County Health Department testing program.
Yeah, we had a conversation the other day and talking about the things that we were doing, Doug, relative to Silver Beach and saltwater intrusion testing and Menantic Peninsula and so forth. And then talking about it, in the sense of how much money we have and what it's going to cost. And can the people in Silver Beach afford $100, kind of a thing, or in general. It came to me to think about, maybe we should split this a little bit and just offer it to a smaller community like Menantic and do that piece of it and see how it goes. See what kind of feedback we get from the folks, see what kind of numbers we get and what it looks like. It could narrow the time down for the county because it's a smaller geographic area.
Maybe.
And so from my perspective, it's kind of like an interesting idea to explore instead of like eating the whole elephant at once. We take a chunk at a time here.
So,
What I would say is, I'm somewhat familiar with the situation on Menantic Peninsula. And my sense is their incidence of saltwater intrusion and vulnerability to that is greater than Silver Beach. So, maybe that's a good approach. I would still contend that the magnitude of numbers, even if you took both communities together, are de minimis. And my principal reason for seeking to have it funded is that you might, by so doing, number one, you collect the information, and number two, you might prompt more tests so that at least it's an event that creates the baseline of data against which we would benchmark.
yeah, it also is consistent with Andrew's, what did you call it, your framework?
Informed dialogue.
That's purely coincidental.
But it's very much in favor, it's consistent with the idea that the town is expressing that they have a responsibility for.
I just think it's a good thing to do, and indeed,
It's the
it
right
is
thing to do.
the right thing to do.
There's another kind of
So-
testing that
but-
you had mentioned too, which got us into this, had to do with USGS
Right.
and their
Well,
methodology.
Joe did not want to do one program at the expense of the other. He felt that the USGS testing should happen. And so your suggestion to narrow our focus for the time being to one community is what's on the table. This is the agenda item.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, I forgot to mention the first time, had to do with the Menantic Peninsula's involvement with their folks that were there doing this, what they call citizens science.
Well, the
with
Menantic Creek people,
Menantic
Menantic
Creek
Creek,
area,
yeah, they've been
things
doing,
monitoring,
yes.
with the, the water in the creek itself.
Although Menantic Creek and
There's only
Menantic,
one side of Menantic Creek.
And I'm just talking about the involvement. I'm talking about the interest. We don't have anything quite like that in Silver Beach. We don't have any people that are working on, citizen science, I call that.
We don't, but as you know, Ken, we do have residents who have asked about public water.
Oh, my. I mean, do I never? Yeah, really.
So I'm just making the point for conversation.
but again, I like the idea, we have two people here representing Silver Beach. We don't have anyone here representing
That's
Menantic.
another-
And it's important that we, as a committee, be seen to be acting in the interest of the entire island. So I do like the idea of, that you're bringing Ken is bringing to us, that we focus on getting this Suffolk County whether funded or unfunded, larger number of Suffolk County Health Department tests on Menantic Peninsula with as much possible incentive for people to share their data so that we get a better picture of the peninsula. That peninsula has always been a little bit weird. In Greg's reports, it's like it doesn't
Menantic
vary
well.
with everything else.
Menantic well
We've been
is
told by the
very well.
USGS that there's a sort of a pinch and a shelf and that they are different. It's worth the study.
There's another issue that we don't have in Silver Beach, which is a boatyard, a very, very large
Yep.
industry down there.
Impactful. Right.
Very true.
Which I would
And,
love to get. I would
me-
love them to push to get that tested. That is so important.
To me, that's probably what's affecting our well.
Yep.
More than anything else, because that land has been, that open space that we use for various events, the reason it's open is because of their usage, in essence. The town many years ago said that cannot be developed because of the fact that is, all of these boats coming in for the summer,
Yeah.
all this usage.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Is that where they have the
The big field.
cricket games?
Yes, that's it. That's why the people who own it, which is the boatyard, can't develop it as such.
And there's never
Interesting
been any
trade-off.
kind of monitoring well there, has there?
We
Has there
have a
ever been
well
any
right
water
next to it,
testing there?
Basically, right? The
Not
Menantic
far
well
out
is
from there.
really
Yeah,
very close to
it's
it.
within 500 feet of that property line. Maybe more 1,000
Along
feet.
the road,
Monitoring
on the way
well
up.
on South Main.
I'm not very good in
That'd be good
business.
to pinpoint that.
All right, so the point is, I'd like to, as Andrew often gets us to do, I'd like to actually, like, if we're gonna do this, let's do this. So is there a motion that you wanna make?
I can make a motion
Yes.
on basically just starting our testing with saltwater intrusion with the Menantic
The Suffolk
Peninsula.
County Health Department tests
Right.
for saltwater intrusion and everything else, full panel, but the focused testing effort.
Yes, full panel testing there for that location of Menantic Peninsula.
And just focus it, instead of the two different communities at once.
You're
Let's start
starting
on that
here.
one community and work with
So
that.
that's a thought.
Right.
Okay,
Motion.
discussion question?
Yes,
Sorry.
How's it being paid for?
It would be paid for,
there are two choices. We asked at our last meeting, and again, how we communicate with the board. At the moment, we're communicating through you, but we asked that continue to be funded, it be offered as funding. Yes, Meg?
I have a clarifying question. Are you talking about just the Montclair colony at the end or all of the Menantic?
I think the entire peninsula.
oh,
It just should be the entire peninsula.
but the entire peninsula is not really saltwaterish.
Okay,
It goes way up in there. I mean, it goes quite a ways up.
So maybe having
Well, what's the
line-
point of your question?
a dividing line.
Well, yeah, it's a, a numbers issue. Like,
Montclair Colony.
if you do Montclair Colony, you can have a high chance of getting almost everybody there to do it, and you'd have a pretty good understanding. We do the whole entirety of the peninsula, there's a lot of varying, I don't know, there's a lot of
Topography.
variability to the entirety of the.
you're absolutely right. But on the other hand, we're making this conversation and this decision without taking into consideration the homeowners association, the MPA.
They have consistently asked us
Yes.
to do this, right?
Where they're at is, it's the entire peninsula.
That is,
Oh, yeah?
that
And
is
that-
where they're at.
That starts at Smith Street
Yes, it does.
and
Yeah.
goes south. So we need to just delineate that, make sure that this is what the area we're talking about.
Otherwise, we're gerrymandering, and I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I guess the answer is.
Yeah,
the
good point.
Well,
peninsula.
it sounds like at this stage anyway, it's taking your proposal, writing it up and making sure that it's complete as to what you're really asking for, because I think if you're gonna try and drop this on the WQI, you need here's our goal, this is when we'd like to, it should be, here's the test plan. And
Be the same as we had
and then it shows up and you say, okay, now we have something.
And
I don't
that
think that
should
we can drop it on
absolutely
the
be a part of it.
WQI, because the WQI we've already determined that you
No.
can't just do testing, unless there's some
There's no septic.
particular.
Can you try it again? And can you put it in form?
As I have told you all that,
The legal advice.
committee of 14, or 12, or 11, I'm not sure, They met last week, and what they're gonna come out with, I can't tell you.
The only reason it'd be valuable. for
Having it
would-
written up is important, I would
It
think.
would be up in the
Yes.
upper areas, by the way, it'd be Smith Street and in that particular area where it's more
So we
dense.
weren't asking for WQI funding because we have
Yes.
legal advice that WQI funding cannot be just testing alone.
State legislation is.
Correct.
Okay,
modified.
So that's out of the question. We did have a budget in the WAC budget for it. Joe doesn't want us to spend that budget as opposed to financing, if it's possible, the USGS test well. So again, I would actually, and I've said this many times, urge us to move forward, funded or unfunded. People can afford $100.
Well, can I just
What we want
say
is a
that I
higher
heard
level
from the
of testing and
president
sharing.
of the Mananic
Please.
Peninsula, and she has stated that they are, and I'm not sure if she's talking about the people in the homeowners association, they are willing to fund their own testing.
Mhm.
They're willing to move forward with it, and I think that that's pretty positive.
Right.
I would suggest if someone demonstrates an inability to fund $125,
It's only
that
100, but-
maybe we could give them that, if it's a hardship.
Mhm.
That's a good point.
Just saying, not that it should be if you live there, no offense, taken or given, but if people have a hard time paying for it and we're looking for as much input as possible, then we should have some vehicle so that they can get funding or help or a rebate or
Are
something.
we talking Mananic Peninsula or Montclair?
Right now, Mananic Peninsula.
Well, then that would cover, that kind of issue would be more relevant than, up towards Smith Street and stuff
There
like
might be
that.
It might be,
homeowners
there
that
might
need
be
help,
someone
need some-
who just cannot afford it.
Okay, however, mostly what this is about is communicating with Jason Himes about
Smaller.
a larger number of tests being done in this area as a study of that area.
What kind of
Right,
account do we
it's
have in
most-
that area, do you think, to make?
Montclair Colony itself is 32. So if you were to expand that, I mean, you're probably looking at like 150. 30, 60.
I want to say the MPA has got at least 100 members.
120 plus?
Yeah, 120 plus. Well, I'm thinking people who are not in the homeowners
Yeah.
association, not everybody's in the association.
right.
But I'm looking at the GIS map and county properties. So, it'll also depend on what the USGS price comes back for the saltwater intrusion study to determine how much of the budget is left over
I got
to
it.
cover this. So like, if the USGS comes back at 15,000 to do their study, then you have 5,000 to play with, so maybe then it's worth doing
Yeah,
a smaller group and trying to get a higher percentage of compliance, so.
Or use that balance to offset anybody who may have
Right, has a
Just
financial
enough.
need or.
hesitation
yeah.
to paying for it.
Okay, but again, the motion here is that we focus on Menantic Peninsula and that we continue to try to organize, presumably for this summer or early fall, a large number of tests to be done in that area to get a feeling for how much saltwater intrusion is a real issue for that community and what are the other issues in that
yeah,
community.
that's about it, because that timing is very good also, because that's when things are cranking down in that area with
That'd
regards
be
to
the
the
best
marina
time to
and
be.
so forth, and as far as the, all the issues that go on with
So again,
population density.
what we're saying is that Silver Beach will wait till the next round of doing this work.
That's 265 versus 150, something.
And we get access to the data?
And we would like to encourage as much as possible access to the data. If we're funding people, we can say, well, here's a quid pro quo. If we're not funding people, it's got to be a voluntary.
Yeah, I think the
Contribution.
fly in the ointment when it's voluntary is that people that have good results have no problem in sharing good results. They may not have.
Well, that's not true, because we had, one of the residents had a very high PFAS reading, and she
Right.
was quite willing to share that information
her.
with us, because she was alarmed. So I think that the opposite can be true. People who have bad readings might be willing to say, hey, listen, what do I do? And because
Right.
that's really what they're saying is. what
And they're
are they
going to need to do something, and when they, you know, in terms of homeowner value, as we've discussed many times, if they sell their home, it's gonna get tested.
That's right.
Are we voting on this?
So yes, that's the motion.
Well, the motion is basically to just provide this test and fund it for those who cannot afford the full amount, that we can fund it to the 125 for those. And with those, we want to demand that they give us the results. For the rest that are voluntarily doing it,
We
we
had
hope
asked that they
voluntarily they will
share.
give us their results. And limit the testing to Montclair or Colony.
Howard's in that area, in that group.
Yeah, I'm resident of Montclair. I test my water every year. Thank God, it's okay.
Do you share your test with us?
Well, my question is, what are you going to do with that information?
We're going to compile how many homes have saltwater intrusion along your streets.
Well, so
Yes, well, and everything else.
test and it's nitrates and there's a lot of things involved with this stuff. What you're gonna do with it. I mean, we have people, which used to be on the priority list for IA systems,
Uh-huh.
3.5 years waiting for them.
No, I know.
And that's ridiculous. The county is not living up to their responsibility.
Right, but what we've said, you know, again, taking a bite at a time, we've said that we as a committee feel that the town has a responsibility to shine a light on, you know, where there is or is not a problem.
Yes.
So for that reason, we're trying to get a larger number of tests happening in one area so we can look at that area and say, okay, you know, it's just this person and that person, but everybody else is okay. Or, oh, we actually have a creeping problem where lots of people are not really aware because they never tested. But
This
they're,
this is a unique area too. It's one of the few places in the island where we have a shared well, a shared private well, in essence, because of the total lack of water.
at the end of Montclair.
Yeah, basically,
Right.
there. I think two families are sharing a well. And then we have the island residents, which I don't know what maybe it's part of that. Anyhow, it's delicate area.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, I have to go.
Yes, you had
I
said
have to leave.
beforehand that you were.
So if you're voting, I'm saying yes.
Okay, so,
I have one more quick question
Yes.
before we leave.
Mhm.
And it has to do with, and you can talk about this after I leave. Do the committees have access to legal representation? Like if any one of the Shelter Island Town committees wanted to ask for legal interpretation of whatever, how do we do that?
Yeah, so typically you would make that request of the town attorney.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering.
So, that
so the
is our
town's been
current
without a
policy.
town attorney since the new board was seated.
Yes.
So
So-
the town board can ask the town attorney, but no committee member, we
Well-
can't.
We would prefer that it go through the town board so that we can keep track of the hours that the attorney's spending. So if you have something that requires interpretation, let us know and we will try to feed it to them for some advice.
I'll see you on Friday.
But yeah, we're just trying to manage the hours.
And we did actually do that with whether the WQI tests could be paid for or not. So we did get legal response on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, Ken has proposed that we focus our USGS saltwater intrusion study on Menantic Peninsula. If possible, we will pay for people who have are
Limited funds.
limited funds.
Mhm.
But otherwise, we will organize as best we can a
Volunteer.
larger scale testing program with the Suffolk County Health Department in that area and ask for people to voluntarily share their results.
Late summer.
moved.
So moved. Second. Greg second. So I think we're going to be unanimous. Then all in favor?
Yay.
Yeah, all right, unanimously approved. Okay, moving along. Doug wanted another collaboration to happen with the Green Committee, and I'd like him to just speak to that briefly.
Thanks, Peter. 2 weekends ago, I attended a seminar in Springs on entitled Landscape Therapy Workshop, hosted by several environmental organizations, but principally by something called the Perfect Earth Project. This is led by Edwina van Gaal. So it really is comprised of her speaking about a very holistic approach to gardening, which would include taking care of your water, insects, birds, planting native plants, all the things that, from my perspective, we all should be aspiring to on Shelter Island. But it's very nice to have it presented in a cohesive manner with various experts. Also at the event were representatives of the Peconic Estuary Partnership, the South Fork Natural History Museum, which is in Bridgehampton, and a native plant landscaper. And so really great things were handed out, various types of brochures. The most compelling, in my opinion, is this one. That says,
I'm gonna drink your,
do you really want to drink your lawn? Fertilizers, fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, pesticides. And then they talk about keystone plant species like oak trees, et cetera, et cetera. You know, they're very different than Shelter Island in the sense that they have city water and city sewage. They plant lawns with turf grass, unlike what we do here predominantly. But they are so far ahead of us, it appears, in terms of paying attention to this, celebrating it, it being.
This being ecologically friendly
I
landscape.
mean, I just pass along this, I did, before the meeting, I did pass along this thing, which basically says, this is the how-to manual, how the seminar is held and what is involved. I think this would be great to host here on Shelter Island. I think that this would be something that would be in keeping and in parallel with our other educational opportunities that we've had over the years at the library, et cetera. I know that there are nonprofits on the island who, in the absence of the library, would be very pleased to host this event, such as Nature Conservancy, Camp Quinnipiac, maybe even the Peterman Center. So in my view, it could be something really good just in terms of expanding our discussions about all of these. This is on keystone plants, oak trees, basically. Now, I haven't had a chance to talk with Tim, but I do think that this would be something really worth exploring. And I do think that, at least as far as I know, they would have room in their schedule to slot something in the second half of June.
Who's they?
The Perfect Earth Project folks.
Yeah.
I have to say that the people who showed up, there was no glitter. It was folks that do their own gardening, et cetera, or use landscapers and really, or looking to adjust their landscaping, adjust their use of pesticides and fertilizers, et cetera, all in keeping with what I believe we are advocating on this committee.
So it clearly goes beyond just water.
Absolutely.
It impacts water, and that's the reason why I think that you're suggesting that this would be a collaborative, something that we collaborate with the Green
And
Council.
also a very holistic thing. And also, I believe
lifestyle change.
that it would prompt a lot of interesting discussion, hopefully. Because the format is Edwina gets up and she's marvelous for about 15 minutes. They collect at the beginning of the meeting 3x5 cards where you write a question about, whatever it might be. Then these three experts, and they go through the cards, they answer these questions. There's a bit of back and forth with the audience. It's a 2-hour, maybe 3-hour session. Then these other nonprofits are all there with their tables. Obviously, they are soliciting membership in the things like the Peconic Estuary Partnership. We could do the same thing with our organizations on Shelter Island.
Okay, so you're proposing perhaps an event, perhaps in sometime in late June.
I am.
And as a collaboration between the Water Advisory Committee and the Green Committee?
Yes.
And so would you be willing to sort of spearhead this as a subcommittee?
Yeah, I'd be the point of contact, yeah.
So when Sean was asking to speak, he wanted to work with Tim as well for his brochure, get some expertise from him. I mentioned that you had raised this with me privately, that you'd like to do so. So I think he'd be,
That'd be very
open
cool.
to-
What would be the venue, Doug? Where would we do this?
Well, I think you need at least 1,000 square feet.
Fire department center?
Could be.
I'm just trying to.
I mean, again, I had a conversation with the folks at Quinnipiac because I was talking about something else with them and
Oh,
mentioned
yeah,
this.
that's a
And
big, they have a nice.
they'd be very eager to attract people, to show people, their place. Then
It's more
2
logical.
weeks ago, there was a really great presentation by Sylvester Manor. However, they had it at the Nature Conservancy at that outdoor education building in the back.
Okay.
There were about 30 people there. That was very, very well organized, and it was very good space. I don't know whether we're going to have a tent opportunity at the library.
Right,
Probably.
that may not be the.
We could do it at the American Legion Hall just as well.
That's even better, maybe, yeah.
I don't know, really have to think about, well, what are these other organizations doing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm trying
All
to.
right, but that, it does require being willing to organize, so.
Yeah, I would take on, yes.
So, I mean, I would hate to stand in the way of energy like that.
I think it's a great idea.
Well,
Right now, yeah.
you guys give me the go, and, I'll be on the phone with these folks this afternoon.
I don't know
Is
that
there
this needs to
a fee
be,
involved with this, Doug?
I don't know, Ken, I didn't even ask.
this is too exploratory to even need a vote or anything,
Any money?
it just, let's do this.
Okay, I will,
Begin to
what I
contact
will
the
do is-
organization, begin to.
I will find out what dates they have available,
Might be.
okay? What the space needs are, so dates, space, and then explore, venues.
Okay, so let's leave it at that and say, go,
Yeah,
let's
that's
try to
nice.
make that happen. Next item on the agenda was just, I distributed to all of you the index of studies that I've been working on in Excel format. Partly I did that because each of you needs to ask for a password for me to, not a password, but
Right.
approval to get into the index of studies in the Google spreadsheet format that's online. Not everybody has asked me for that. If you do click on the index in our studies folder, it'll say, you need to get access, and it'll send me an email and I can send you back and you can access it. Some of you have already accessed it, but you all have it in your inboxes, and it's also in Excel format. And it's also in our discussion documents section, so it's linked, everybody can see it. The liaisons also have access to it. What I did with the Excel version was to expand the rows enough so that the summary of the key findings and recommendations of each study, which is in ChatGPT, artificially intelligent summary, is expanded, and it gives you, maybe, 3 or 4 paragraphs, or, it's not that much for each, each 100-page study boils down to a readable summary. Having read all of the studies that ChatGPT was able to summarize, I can tell you that the summaries are excellent, but I don't have to tell you that with AI, a mistake could be made, it could be, so don't if you're looking at something, but
I would ask everyone at this point, we now have an index of our studies. 2 of the studies couldn't be summarized because they were too long, that
The county summaries of those are 20 pages minimum.
right, so,
Yeah,
right,
it's
so.
about page
So
summary.
the last two don't have summaries, and if you want to read a few hundred pages, then, and, you know, in some of them, it's worth it. The one of, in particular, the mod flow analysis of water flow, and, you know, the part of it related to Shelter Island has been a critical document for it. It's what tells us that water flow from the center to the edges of, to the saltwater interface can be very, very long in a very narrow strip right in the center. But by reading through, and you know, maybe it's 20 pages of reading total, you really get a feeling of what we've been told again and again and again for 30 years. And you also might get a feeling for what we have not really studied, or, and one of those things, you know, Joe has been focused on, we don't have a good saltwater intrusion monitoring well, and that's one of the studies that he's advocating for. And the other thing that I have raised in our previous meetings is a focus on the issues of separation of septic and well locations, that we keep running into barriers based on our septic systems not having sufficient setbacks from our wells. The developers have these problems. The town certainly has this problem in the
Which
center.
study is that in?
We don't have, that is what we do not
that's
have
one
a
of the things we
study
don't
of the impact of setbacks. You know, it has a ton of positive, everybody, people, you know, worry about density, and so it does create density limits. Yes, Meg?
It is discussed a little bit in Keogh's report on the wastewater management system.
Right,
It does
exactly.
map out all the well locations and the septic locations and overlapping conflict. So it does give you kind of a cursory look at how that lays out and what part of the problem is.
So I would just, again, you have it in Excel format, it's expanded, so it's easy to read the summaries of all of the documents. Just please, read the summaries of all of the documents.
I got into the file, I didn't, no problem.
Column F is like got, you know, this.
And then you've just got the text wrapping in each one of those cells.
Each one of those, yeah, and so it'll give you yes, or if you pull up the Excel spreadsheet version of it, it's all expanded, so you can just read down that column and know what we've been told for 30 years.
And you can link to the original.
And it links, each one links to the original, even if you're in the Excel spreadsheet, if you click on the study, on the link to the study,
Take you to the
it'll
study.
open the study.
It'll take you exactly where they're summarizing?
It'll take you to the entire study on our study, in our studies folder on the.
It's a colossal piece of work, Peter, I have to say. It's really, I mean,
Again, you know, AI made it a little easier, so.
yeah,
But also it made it
some thinking about how to organize it in the first place.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we have that. Again, it behooves us as members of this committee to, you know, just
Know what we have.
know what we have and know what we've been told in no uncertain terms for a long period of time. So, and be able to reference, okay, here's where we knew it.
You know, that's somewhat
2014,
characteristic of technical studies, which is they always refer back to the
Yes.
studies that were done before. They never reinvent the wheel.
No, but it's going back quite a ways. We have known that there's an issue with high nitrogen in the center. We've known, and now we have PFAS and 1,4-dioxane, which we weren't testing 10 years ago, that we have some clarity that it's there in our water.
We have a standard.
And when we come back next month, we need to come back to, the USGS is asking us for the 2026 to 2029 repeat of our 2016, 2019 baseline study. They're asking us what do we want, and I think we're clear. I don't think it would be very hard to figure out. We want to repeat what we did before, and we want 1,4-dioxane and PFAS. But that would allow them to, and also they're asking, do we want a published report? What do we want as?
We had a presentation before. If you
Right, we
recall.
did a presentation.
You want a
Which is
report.
on our.
You want them on the record.
You want it on the record, and but they will,
That's why bother?
but they'll do a published, you know, the SIR, the study, they'll potentially do that. But all of these things have a cost, and
Where will
and
they,
they will meet with us a number of times to right-size the package to like what budget we have and what are the locations? Are we repeating the exact same locations? Are we adding a different
where did
one?
they sample from before?
There were 9,
Wells.
there were 9 sites that they, you know, it was distribution.
Different well bores than the one we monitor for water?
Some overlap, some do not, but they had also they did one at Crescent Beach, where they literally like put a
Hand auger?
into the sand to figure out what was coming out from.
I think we should have as many sampling points as possible.
Good valid one. Basically, in a static well, that should be pumped, in essence, because of you want a good water to test that comes from the aquifer, not one that's been sitting in the pipe.
Yeah.
We use, just to get height with.
Look, could they run their measurement devices and take a sample from an existing water well from somebody's house?
I don't think they did that.
That hasn't been, they have a network of testing wells.
Right.
They've had this network that we've relied on for height, but.
Right, that's a dozen wells. That's not
Quantity.
significant.
But they have other wells they use sometimes for, and they added in actually one on Strawberry Lane as like a freebie. They added one
GIS
point.
system has the locations of our wells. And I was going to ask Meg on this one regarding the setbacks and things. Are we able to use the GIS system to evaluate setbacks regarding well and septic? We're doing a better job in keeping that updated?
No, we've not been updated.
Not yet. Okay. That's a logical place for that.
So just to close out the studies, and the connection to future studies in the USGS baseline studies, that original 2016 to 2019 presentation is among the studies summarized in the Excel document we were referring to in it's in that index. So you can see what it said. And what it said, I mean, we've put it up on the screen a few times recently, was pretty much what we found when we studied the center, which was that half of our homes are in that action zone, still potable, but 5 to 10 milligrams of nitrogen. Yeah.
Another question. So have they tabled a scope for this study?
Have they?
Have they proposed a scope for
Well,
this?
since it's 2026, they want to meet with us and know what we want from them. And they've looked at the previous, it's a new person, it's not Irene Fisher. But there's a new person but she's eager to meet with us. She's worked with Irene referenced, so she's the new head of the particular department, so.
The intent there is that we were going to take those wells, measure them now almost 10 years old, and then go back to those same wells
To get a feeling.
to get a feel, and then be able to sit down on a page and say, this is how things have changed.
In 10 years.
Bad in that way, good in that, just as a direct.
I think that's a good practice, but I would advocate for more sampling so that you have something that's really statistically significant.
Yeah, it's a question of money. Basically, you want to do what you did before.
Well-
Because from what we like to like is comparison, and then expand it a little bit is what you're saying, or asking for.
Again, it's a published study. There was a published study.
There's a
It's
presentation on file.
Published presentation. Go to the index, find it, read through it. There also
Irene
is
Fisher.
in our discussion documents, the letter from the USGS, how they want to work with us on
Oh, it
develop is on letter from the USGS on
Irene Fisher.
the 2026. It's not Irene's, the
that-
for the 2026, 2029, it's from the.
No,
new
I
person.
meant for historical reasons, for the presentation that they
The
gave.
presentation is
It
in
would be
there,
under
Irene
Irene, yeah,
Fisher's
right.
2016, 2019. Okay, so again, enough on the index. I'm just saying, get into it and bear in mind that it applies to, which studies are appropriate to do next. So it's gonna come up, and having that background is gonna be important. So I asked everybody, if I can move on just a little bit, I thought, so I thought that the town had actually a very, very good session 2 weeks ago on making some headway with the municipal center. I don't know if everybody, I know you sent us the
Right.
key moment, the start and stop moments
Yeah.
to watch. I don't know if everybody had a chance. It's,
Some of it.
take some time to watch. I'm not going to ask, but it takes some time to watch, like 45 minutes to watch. I think it started out with, at some point, Meg and Gordon agreed to disagree. But then I thought, actually, you were agreeing more than you were disagreeing.
Different points of views are good.
A different point, yes.
Asking questions is not a bad thing.
Right, and so just to summarize what's part of what I heard was, again, the setback issue, it turns out to be the key, Joe's key point his presentation is excellent about what are the issues and what are the possibilities. It's the first 20 minutes of the discussion. It really, you should listen to it. But where he winds up is, he has two things that are really, that stand out as you listen to Joe's presentation. One is he's asking, he knows that Amber is going to present at the end of the discussion or at some point in the discussion, financial picture. And the financial picture is complicated because there's a large pot of money that the town had that they may not have because it's federal funds. So he was looking at what can you do? Where's the low hanging fruit? What could you do and have some effect very affordably with some impact? But then he was looking at as well, what do you need to do in terms of the overall municipal complex? And it goes beyond Water Advisory Committee, they need space and they need to do, there are various things they need to think about, the board needs to think about. However, what Joe was saying was, consider consolidating something. It could be consolidate your water supply to one spot. So we talked about, we've talked about, I don't think it's moving forward, but having water supply from Sachem's Woods so that it's not mixed in with the septic systems here. But Joe was neutral on this. You could consolidate your septic system so that you don't have such big setback issues from each of the wells, and you don't have, and actually Meg made the point that it's bad planning to have lots of little individual systems, each of which you have to do at a higher standard than just individual homeowners, because it's public facilities. So consolidate something. And if you listen carefully, you'll hear Amber saying, well, yes, we should look at path A, path B, path C. But then she makes the aside, but I think what we're going to be able to get to, and I think what we're going to be able to get to is an IA system. And I would like to point out at this point that, Gordon referenced the Lombardo original proposal for a centralized septic system. And we know the history of what happened there. But Lombardo had put 3 options on the table, only 2 of which were considered. So the first was Clinowickis, and we know what happened there. The second was Manwaring Road, and we know what happened there. And the third was a consolidated system in the center. At the time, he was looking at the most likely spot where you could site that would be next to the firehouse. I think that things have changed with the acquisition of this property here, so that you have more options now. I personally would just advocate that consolidate something like an advanced septic system and plan for, you might need to do more with that. You might find yourself needing to treat other things besides just nitrogen. So therefore, leave yourself enough space. It would wind up being park-like space within the town complex, where in the future, you might go beyond what you can accomplish right now. Greg had a reaction to the presentation when I spoke with him, which was the low-hanging fruit, to buy some time.
Yes.
So the low-hanging fruit was that the police station you could just deal with the police station. The town is under some constraints, and that is they have to show progress, because the county is saying you're out of compliance, you have to show progress. So potentially a less expensive project, the biggest bang for the buck might be at the police station. I advocate the police station is just on the other side of this open space that we have now. You can handle all of that at once. You could, but you know, yeah, a fallback is if you can't fund things, fine, but probably you can.
The pressure from the county is to treat our potable water, not our wastewater.
Right,
So that's-
because you don't have sufficient setback from your cesspools.
We don't have sufficient setback from the cemetery either.
Uh-huh.
So we require 2 variances. Because they're technically, non-community public wells, 200-foot setback from the cemetery, the distance from the cemetery to the street is 196 feet. So if we have wells in any of these properties, we require that variance along with whatever the setback to the sanitary system is if we can't meet that 200 feet separation. So it's different for commercial, it's 200 feet, not 150 like residential. So we have to look at that. We might need multiple variances to keep the wells. We might need multiple variances to put in the sanitary based on those factors.
So not just simply the setback from the
Correct.
system. So, but you need to, getting those variances depends on showing that
We have to.
you're forward progress, right?
Yeah.
Right. So again, Meg, let me just ask you, in your mind, does that suggest that you would want to consolidate wells rather than septics?
I would think that the most economic option would be to consolidate both. If you consolidate sanitary in one area and water in another.
Right, you
then
have setback
get the
and you
best
have,
separation distance and the best.
you also have only one point.
Ongoing maintenance on
Ongoing
both sides of it
maintenance
would
is
be,
easier if
it's
you only
really
have one
expensive.
thing to maintain.
On either side.
On
And
either.
then Gordon had made the point that, like, as you think about your redesign, think second floor, think vertically rather than horizontally, because you need space.
Listen, there's gonna be more discussion, and
I know, I appreciate that.
Add to you, okay?
Right.
I would like to say something, okay? I thought that, Andrew, what you put together today, I thought was excellent. I felt that your points
Very
are
good.
spot on. I mean, I read it 3 times last night, okay? And, what you really are doing is you're, when you look at the rules, but what came to my mind, and I'd like to explore this a little bit further, but it's like, this is where you get into, what things can you implement, or what things should the town require to move this thing along, okay? And you talked about house size, but we've been dealing with some of that stuff. It came to my mind of all the issues we have on wetlands. Okay, we have people, so I think there's a lot of little pieces here that are very much that you brought out that are front and center that really add to the rule portion, okay? And I think you did a great job, okay? That's all I can say is that I think you handled it perfectly, okay? And I think it's really, to me, it's almost like something that's a model in terms of how to move forward, okay? I think the rules, I think the idea, the town taking care of its own responsibilities, which is really where I was coming from, okay?
For here, right?
For us to be here, but I'm not gonna beat on that horse, I think I killed that one, okay? But I think that and the dialogue in terms of what are the recommendations or where we can go. I think you guys had a very good meeting tonight, but I think that you really hit the ball out of the park, okay? And not just because I agree with you, because I'll be honest with you, I read it a few times. The first time, I said, wow, he really has a point of view. And then after I read it a number of times, I walked away with something completely different. I commend you because I think you're not into steering. You're looking for a solution here, and I think That's the good conversation, okay? Become neutral, then you'll decide what's the right direction to go, okay? And, because ultimately, I think we're early on, but I think it's a good conversation. I think you're addressing the big 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Thanks, Gordon.
Which
Thank
is
you
the way you
for-
had described it when you first triggered the conversation,
Gordon,
800-pound gorilla.
thank you for asking the question.
So I think we're all kind of moving toward, let's get some things done here. So. All right, 4:00,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Do you want to talk old and new business?
Well, okay, is there all?
Just ask if there's, because I don't know whether or not.
Yeah, well, and also
Any
comment,
hands
yeah,
show up.
if people on Zoom felt they needed to make a contribution. And any old or new business, I think we've brought up from my point of view, the old business was just the.
It's fine, nobody's there, so there's no hands up, so.
Right. Okay, so motion to adjourn, he's already got his coat on, all right, all right.
Got another meeting.
We're good.
so I gotta-
Okay.